Spreading the news.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
New York, I love you. I love New York.
Rose trying to get open, fires away. Bang! It's over! The Bulls win at the buzzer! Iguodala to Curry, back to Iguodala, up for the layup. Oh, blocked by James. LeBron James with a rejection. Puts up the three. Won't go. Rebound Bosh. Back out to Allen. His three-pointer. Bang!
What's going on, people? Welcome to another episode of the Off the Ball podcast with me, your host, Chris LeBron, and we got a good one today for you guys. We're going to discuss the NBA draft, the Knicks draft picks, and the Knicks head coaching search, which is we still don't have a coach. As you see, I got my guy Lee from the Knick of Time show. What's going on, my guy?
Salute, salute, salute. What's going on, baby? Let's talk Knicks. Let's talk coaching, draft picks.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, man. Happy to have you on. You know, we've been chopping up for a little bit, so glad to have you on the show. Just tell me a little bit about yourself and what you do, man.
Yeah,
because it's the first time on the pod.
It is the first time. Thank you very much, man. It's always an honor to chop it up with other creators and writers and thinkers about ball. I love this sport. It's the only sport that I watch. My background is actually playwriting, poetry, and fiction writing. So I've been a journalist for 15 years. Recently got into sports about the last 7. Covering the Knicks. Started with the Knicks on Posting and Toasting blog, covering games, recaps, writing about draft prospects, because I've been really heavy in the Dallas-Fort Worth high school basketball scene for about over 20 years. I've been going to the state tournament and following AAU teams for a long time. So I've seen just about every great Dallas prospect, from Chris Bosh, CJ Miles, Tyrese Maxey, all those guys. I've seen all of them come through the high school field, win state championships, play AAU ball. So I've always loved sports, but my main interest is contemporary art and poetry and theater. So that's like where all my passions are and what I write a lot about. And then basketball is kind of more of a hobby, but it's getting really hot lately. I've been having some opportunities now with Bleacher Report and writing essays on the NBA for The Guardian. So my world is opening up. The Knick of Time show, I've been with them for about 3 years now. I think this is my 4th season with them. So excited about growing there as well and helping the channel. Yeah, man, it's just been a great experience. And now we finally have another Dallas prospect on the Knicks, which I'm really happy to talk about.
First of all, those are really dope accomplishments. You know, do stuff for Bleacher Report. Knick of Time is a very well-known Knicks, platform. So to be able to do stuff like that is really dope. And like I said, I've liked your work a lot. And like I said, we've been chopping it up on Twitter for a little bit. So like I said, finally dope to get you on here and talk about that. And like I said, you're familiarized with, the Dallas area, and there's we'll get right into it with the draft. And, obviously the Knicks selected Mohamed Diawara with that 51st pick, but the guy they took, an undrafted free agent, Dink Pate, I would have been cool at 51. Like, he was someone I had top 60 on my board. And Mohamed Diawara, I didn't know too much about it. I know he was a kind of more of an upside type of guy, but I would have been cool with Dink. I thought Dink, he gets kind of a bad rap because of the number. Like, you just look at his splits and people automatically get turned off. And I've seen that a lot, with people looking at him saying, "Oh man, this guy is inefficient," blah blah blah. And I understand that, but I always said there's always more context to that. But I think if you can coach up Dink, and I think obviously with how he was with the Ignite, and then that disbanded, is no longer a thing. The G League Ignite. He did improve his second year with Mexico City, so I think there's some things to like, but. You know a lot about Dink. That's really, I wanted to get you on because you know a lot about Dink Pate, and so tell me what people should know more about Dink.
Well, we had a European scout named Ersin Demir on the Knick of Time show last week, and we were talking with him, and he was going through all the different options of who the Knicks chose, and him and I got into a little bit of a debate about whether the Knicks should go safe or go for home run swings. He thought the Knicks should go safe because they had some guys that had a lot of talent in that starting five, and they needed some positional help in the backcourt and maybe even another bid. I thought it should be all home run picks. I thought that we should trade back, try to get 2 second-round picks, and go for a home run smash or both. And wouldn't you know it, we did. One of them we didn't have to trade for. We were able to sign undrafted. And I was very surprised that no team took a flyer on Dink. And I think it's because of what you said, which is a shooting splits. And if you look at the shooting splits, there's more to infer if you watched any game tape of him, specifically in Metro City, which is the most recent tape. You will understand why those shooting numbers were so bad. First, let's talk about the context. He's an American player from West Dallas, played for Pinkston High School, which is where the AAU team that he played for, I'm now helping them out. So I'm at every practice. We played last night. We won all 3 of our games. We beat Tyrese Maxey's team, his AAU team. So that was a Knicks win for me, where a Knicks player's team is beating a Philly player. But the area that he's from is very inner city. It's fairly diverse, but it's America, and it's first world. He's going to Metro City, another area that I'm very familiar of. My ex-girlfriend had a lot of family there, so we spent a lot of time going to art fairs and art galleries there. It can be fairly dangerous, especially when it's not a tourist time of year and it's just the nationals. There is lots of corruption, lots of crime, lots of cartel activity. So from what I've gathered, talking to his former AAU coaches and family, is that there was a little bit of a difficulty in the cultural adjustment. And it's hard to think about efficiency and think about shots when shit's blown up outside and the threat of real violence is around him 24/7. That existential threat is very real and can have a serious impact on him. I think that team would have been in America. There would have been maybe a gradual uptick in some of the shooting splits and percentages because you're not worried about your life or death situations outside. Now, he's never said any of this, right? His interview with Slam, the mission is basketball. I'm taking him with basketball. He's very complimentary about the culture in the city, and I am too. It's a beautiful city, but it's not United States. It is Metro City, and there's a lot of danger there. And I think that culture shock might have had something to do with some of the inefficiencies that we saw. But there is a lot of good and bad with his game. Now, had the luxury, not many people have. I can talk to all the coaches that coached him with DFW Urban Elite. I can talk to his family, which I have. I've been texting with them the last couple of days. And there are some really huge upsides with Dink. He is an elite athlete for sure. And I think a lot of what we saw that was demanded more in the G League, I think we're going to see some of that develop in the G League in the United States with the Knicks Westchester team, which I think he's going to spend the majority of his time with. His athleticism, size, and instincts, I think right off the bat are going to provide a very unique downhill transition game player where he needs to really improve from the tape that I watched in Metro City is his decision-making. His reads, I think, are a little bit below average for someone who is a point guard, but then you have to account for his age. Kid is only 19, been playing professional since 17, and he wasn't someone who got in the NBA like Luka or these European guys at 9 or 10. He got in around the middle school, high school years, and I think it took him a while to really adjust positionally. The coach put a ball in his hands, told him, hey, you can see over everybody else because of your height. Play point guard. But in reality, his skill set isn't really a point guard. To me, it's more of an off-ball wing. His catch and shoot numbers, shooting 37% in the G League, I think that's indicative and set with before the defense is set. That's what you're going to see with him with the Westchester Knicks, which I think he's going to get a lot of reps from and benefit from playing off the ball. I think on the ball is where he struggles, making those reads, being able to finish in the half-court sets, being able to have pull-up opportunities, whether it's beyond the arc or in the mid-range. That's where the work needs to be put in. But the athleticism, the promise of switchability, where some of the tape I watched, he wasn't really efficient with the switches. So a lot of his teammates had to say, yo, move up, whatever it is, move up to the line or crash out to the corner. There were some mistakes there, missed in rotation that I think he needs. That's just IQ and playing more reps with high-level players. Those things are going to go up as well. But the potential with this kid is sky high. I don't think he's a real point guard. And I don't think that the guys we've seen in the past, the archetypes of Lonzo Ball, those guys come in with that size and they have the very high IQ. That's not necessarily Dink Pate. I think Dink Pate can play some point guard and guard some guards as well in Alonzo Ball type situations, but I think he's more suited for an off-ball role in the wing.
What about some of the defensive stuff? Because he has the defensive upside to potentially be a solid defender. And in order for young guys, they gotta in order to crack a rotation, you're gonna have to play some type of defense. Because he's not gonna be able to get those opportunities. A lot of opportunities to get the ball in his hand. Especially on this team potentially. So what do you think about the defensive potential upside? Because there is some there, but he had a lot of defensive inconsistencies. In the G League.
He did. It's going to be something that he has to work on. Again, you can't teach size. He has that. So he has to learn how to utilize his size and be smarter with his reads. And I think that he will have some success guarding smaller guards just because of a 6'9", 6'10" wingspan. He'll be able to contain some of the point of attack that he'll be on the defensive side of the ball. But that's not going to be his role in the NBA. I think he needs to learn to be better at closing out on shooters and better in rotation off of ball screens. That's where I think he needs to pick up the effort because he has a foot speed, he has a wingspan, he has athleticism. Right now, it's about adaptability. And it's about being more comfortable being on the court and knowing your role. Right now, his role has been kind of in flux. He wasn't really on ball a lot with that Mexico City team. Trey Burke was on ball with that team. He really ran the point, and Dink was more of a catch and shoot option on the perimeter, which he was pretty good at. And I think those skills would translate into the Westchester Knicks. But right now, I think defensively, he's got to learn how to use his body. Because, dude, you're 6'8", you got 6'9", 6'10" wingspan. You're one of the tallest guards in the NBA immediately, but you have to learn how to guard in space, to play with gaps, and to be smart in rotation. And that, I think, is a skill set that he has to grow up in, learn up in. Because the size, he could guard 1s, 2s, and 3s, hypothetically, right? But we haven't seen that efficiently yet.
So obviously, we saw a lot of he was crazily inefficient in that first year in the G League, and with the G League at 9, obviously made a bit of a leap. Is the second season in Mexico City. What was the biggest thing you think for that leap? And obviously, you mentioned before, just there was going to Mexico City was crazy, but like, what did you see that what made you feel good about that? Him making that leap from year 1 of G League to year 2.
I think from what I've heard, a lot of it was just maturity, growing into his body, becoming more comfortable with his body and his size and his role. Maturation. When he first joined the G League at 9, he was 17 years old. Like, really think about that. When I was 17 years old, I was a elite dipshit, right? I was in no way playing for any type of organized ball or organized anything, bro. I was running these streets, to get my ass beat on the daily. So I think it's just about being a professional and playing within a system and within a team, because a lot of AAU ball, some of the time, you get opportunities to go very ISO and do your own thing. There's not a lot of discipline. There's not an emphasis on fundamentals. You're supposed to learn those things in a high school program that you're at. You come to AAU to show them off, not necessarily to learn fundamentals. And I don't know if Dink Pate has ever had a system where he's really been entrenched in fundamentals and to learn really how to use your body in spots, how to be a really tight ball handler, how to really know where your teammates are going to be on the break. And I think when you get inside the free throw line, his instincts are a little bit higher. I think that's where his passes become more efficient and more crisper, is in transition. It's in those half-court sets, which I think is going to be to our advantage, because this is not a player I think Leon Rhodes would have selected if Tibbs was the head coach, because there would have been no way.
He's not a Tibbs guy.
Never gotten reps. And I think it would have been less likely that the system that would have been ran for the Westchester Knicks wouldn't be conducive to his skill set either. Right now, I think I'm hoping this Nets coach that we have institutes more transition, more getting out in the break, because the Knicks have been in the bottom pace under Tibbs almost every single
bottom
year.
5 every year, it feels like.
If that changes, Dink Pate has an opportunity, I think, to crack the rotation next year in some spot minutes. I mean, there's no chance this year. Right now, he's just fighting for a spot on a team, but there is an opportunity playing with these awesome guys we got in the summer league to really learn from them, especially Tyler Kolek is the one I'm specifically looking at that will help him as an off-ball player become more comfortable in catch and shoot, which was the biggest jump from year 1 to year 2 in the G League, with him hitting almost 38% from catch and shoot opportunities on the perimeter.
And that's the thing with a lot of these guys we had from last year, and Dink and Diawara, like, now that we're going to have a more modernized coach who's going to, play a more upscale type of, op offense, like, we can actually envision, like, I remember doing last year's draft and just looking at guys who were Tibbs guys, just trying to see, all right, which players are just Tibbs guys? Because we know, like, he has a type. And now it's like, oh, we can actually just draft good players and just, because we know whoever the coach is, whoever that, and we'll discuss that in a little bit, whoever the coach is, they're going to have a more modern day approach to offense. And now we could just, try to draft guys who are more transition type guys, so it gives you more of a advanced thought process of what these guys could do instead of just having, all right, we just need a certain player because this is what Tibbs wants, and Dink is, like you said, Dink would not have been that. Diawara maybe because there's some defensive, instincts that, Tibbs would like, there's obviously massive. He has a 7-foot crate, full wingspan and stuff. So there, but Dink, the last thing with Dink, because I know it's crazy that people are going to be like, why they focus so much on a guy who is undrafted, but there's like I said, there's a lot of upside, and if he hits, I said, Lee, like he's a lotto talent. Talent alone, he's a lottery talent, and everyone has been saying this for years. Like he's a lottery talent. It's just maybe some bad decisions. We're going to G League and stuff, but if you figure him out, you could get something here. That's why I think people are kind of excited about him because the potential is like we could get a really solid player and not even have you the draft pick on him.
Yeah, I mean, we've addressed some of the minuses. When defenses are set, he does have trouble scoring. There's not a whole lot of volume or movement shooting in his game either. But there are some huge positives. Some of the clips I've seen of him attacking closeouts is very, very promising. He's got a really nice floater. So I think some of that intermediate game, he can find spots to score in. And there was an uptick from percentages finishing around the rim in his first season with G League Ignite. It was somewhere around 32%. He increased that to 45% with Metro City. Now, that goes down when you start considering the half court. Once defenses get set, I think it dropped almost 10 points at 35%, finishing around the rim on layups when defenses were set. But in the open court, he is unstoppable. He's an elite athlete, and I mean elite.
Yep.
Windmill dunks, tomahawk dunks, dunking it with contact, absorbing contact, finishing through contact. He's an elite front court player. He might actually be the most athletic player on the Knicks roster right now. Him or Mitchell Robinson.
And we need more athleticism.
Bro, I don't know what it's so funny. The Knicks, the entire time I've been a fan since the year 2001, we've been the most least athletic team.
Right?
Yeah. I've got so many Frank Williams and Shannon Andersons and guys, Tracy McGrady when he's absolutely cooked. These guys have no mobility and no athleticism. I like the fact that Leon Rose targeted two guys with high athletic upside, and Dink Pate, if he can become an on-ball threat, could be really dangerous at the point of attack. Again, it's about decision-making. It's about becoming comfortable with his body. It's about knowing how to score in half-court sets. When the defense is set and attuned to you and scouting for you, those are the things he needs to become more aware, as well as his reads, helping his teammates find easy scoring opportunities. I think he has a capacity. It's a smart kid, talented kid with a ton of upside. I think he's going to hit some of those and eventually become a rotational piece for us next year in spot minutes.
I like it. That's what I'm excited about this. Like, it's weird to say you're excited about an undrafted free agent, but I am, and I know you are, and that's why I wanted to get you to talk about Dink. But let's talk about their actual draft pick in Mohamed Diawara. And you said you don't know much about him. I didn't know too much about him. He wasn't on my top 70 board, but like you mentioned, he's athletic, and he's 6'8", 200 plus pounds. Has a 7'4" wingspan. I think he had a 9'2" standing, reach. Like, he has tremendous physical gifts. Offensively, there's not much there. I think he shot 41% last year in France, 28 from three. Not a good free throw shooter, but the defensive tools are very intriguing. Athleticism and what he can do in transition. Same thing with Dink. Like, those guys, we need more athleticism, and with these two guys, they provide that. So, what can you say about Mohamed Diawara? Like I said, you didn't do much on him. You didn't know much about him, but what can you say about him that you like?
Well, you have to assume with Tom Thibodeau gone, that the strategy is going to change dramatically. I think that infers that you're going to see maybe some zone, but definitely more switching 1 through 5. And if that's going to be the hypothetical philosophy moving forward, you have to have the personnel who can do that. And right now, you got Mikal Bridges, You got OG Anunoby. You got Josh Hart sometimes, not consistently, and you have Deuce and Bride. Mitchell Robinson in stretches can also be a great switchable defender on the perimeter too.
Yes.
We've seen that in the playoffs. But outside of that, very, very limited. Most of our guys are undersized. Most of our guys have trouble navigating ball screens. So what do you need? You need athletes with size who can defend. This draft to me is all about promise and potential. When Tom Thibodeau was here, it was about roles and responsibilities. That outlet now should be gone. We don't even have a head coach, so we don't know what the philosophy is. But I think an outside philosophy should be maintained right now until a coach is signed. So get guys who can play in any system, who defend 2-5 theoretically. That describes both our French friend and Dink Pate. Both these guys are bringing 6'8" size. Really, outside of OG Anunoby, who is really the only prototypical big wing that we have on the roster. Now we got two more. Like we haven't really had a draft. We went out and scouted that. Deuce undersized, Grimes undersized, Trevor Keels a bust. We haven't really had that wing.
Trevor Keels.
Emmanuel
I never understood that pick.
Also undersized, and Obi Toppin not undersized, but lacked a lot defensively.
Yeah.
Didn't necessarily have the strength as well to keep his man in front of him until he developed in Indiana. But I like the archetypal position we went after in this draft. Lots and lots of, and you know what? If they're busts, these are cheap contracts that we didn't have to trade, draft for, or make huge investments for. We can keep these guys in the G League for the entire year until our system matures and these guys get more reps playing against the best competition either of these kids have ever played against in their entire life is going to be in the G League with the Westchester Knicks. So I like the idea conceptually of the promise that both of them bring in terms of the size, the wingspan, and the defensive potential. It could be scary hours in a season or two.
Yeah. Sagana Job's doing a good job there at Westchester. He's doing a good job developing guys, and adding two more guys like that will really do him good service. Like I said, that's gonna be the best development, and he's obviously developing guys. So, but like I said, regardless of who the coach is, like these are guys that, like I said, we struggled a lot with, especially getting through screens. Right? You saw how many times we couldn't get through screens, and guys are just wide open, at the 3-point line, just jacking up threes, so these guys are big and strong that they can get through that. And like I said, they're project picks. That's fine, but they're going to fit regardless of the coaches, they're going to fit, so that's what I like about this is like, and the mindset changes with, like I said, we used to think Tibbs guys, who are Tibbs guys? And now it's just, no, we don't have a coach. That's fine. But we're just going to draft players that we think are going to fit regardless of who the next coach is,
If you think about the finals and you look at the type of players that these 10-man rotations, everyone's a two-way threat. If you think about those type of guys, the guys that really fill the margins for both those teams, the Ben Shepherds or the Cason Wallaces, another Dallas prospect from Richardson High School, or the Aaron Wiggins, these guys would not pull up above the break 3-point shooters, right? These guys didn't come in with as part of their player profile. They had to learn to be catch and shoot threats, to hit threes before the closeout in the corners. And all three of those guys became those threats. That's a type of mold I think both Pate and our French friend are going to be pushed toward, is attack your closeouts and hit your corner threes. If that's it, bro, this is back end bench depth that we are now adding to our team that can now play in spots we need them. God forbid injuries happen, or as development evolves, now we have guys to plug and play as our system goes on year over year.
Yep, I'm with you. So let's talk about the next topic, and who coaches the Knicks. So there's obviously been abundance of names. Knicks have tried to pry coaches away from teams and got rejected. And obviously there's still the J Kidd thing that is still looming around, whether that's a thing, that we'll still figure that out. It seems, I kind of feel like they want Kidd. It's going to be really difficult to get him out there, but there's obviously other head coaching, guys that are in have coached before, like Taylor Jenkins, who was at Memphis, Mike Brown, who's been around the block a few times, helped bring back the Kings back to relevancy. There's James Borrego, who coached, the Hornets for a few years. Minka Nari that they have interest to, the Johnny Bryan, they haven't interviewed him yet as far as I know, but that's still a name there too. So the next Knicks coach, what what philosophy or principles do you want in the next head coach? Like, what do you need to hear to feel good about whoever that next coach is?
Well, I think the front office is determined to have a more collaborative coach, someone who listens to feedback, someone who develops a game plan for young players to eventually have roles with the team moving forward, not just kind of more ambiguous, like they're in the G League, but when are they going to be called up? Tibbs, it was so strange. Remember when Tibbs would like call up guys and then send them right back down, and all they would do was sit on the bench? I never really understood that. Like, what was that even for? To me, you're messing with the young players' mentality and their confidence when things like that happen. So to me, a 10-man rotation is imperative. Someone who utilizes Cat and Brunson together, because the assists from Brunson to Cat were the lowest of Cat's career with a star guard in comparison to Anthony Edwards in the 2-man game in Minnesota. I want to see more bid-to-bid spacing.
Yeah.
When Mitchell Robinson's being utilized as a lob threat by Cat. I want to see Cat as a hybrid, 4 or 5, the ability to play with certain players in different lineups, not stuck with the same 4 guys for 60% of the minutes that he plays in the game, but a diverse lineup that he's playing alongside that enhances strengths based on matchups. Those type of things are very important. Someone who's willing to let the game really dictate what kind of defensive sets he's running and what kind of offense he's running. When to know when to get into a transition and try to force steals and blitz at pick and roll, and when to know when to go into a zone to try to let their poor shooters provide long rebounds for us to get in transition. Those type of just mindsets, really knowing the personnel and having a plan for the personnel to be maximized. We never heard that from Tibbs, right? Tibbs is all about what, do what the game gives you, listen to the game, read and react type offense. I want to hear a real game plan and then see it in action once the season starts of guys playing roles they haven't before. Maybe it's Karl-Anthony Towns, not becoming a joker, but becoming a Domantas Sabonis and really becoming a DHO option there, getting guys on our bench like Deuce McBride or Landry Shamet, more 3-point opportunities off the catch on the perimeter from dribble handoffs. Like, that's something that Mike Brown I thought was really exceptional at. Learned that from Steve Kerr and Draymond Green and Golden State, and then maximized it with Fox and Sabonis and the Kings, and really became that was the cornerstone of their offense was dribble handoff action, and it worked to perfection until it didn't when De'Aaron Fox, I think, had some issues with Mike Brown. But something like that, like these are going to be the cornerstones of our offense because it fits the personnel's strengths, not their weaknesses, not trying to make Mikal Bridges into a 3-point threat or OG Anunoby into an on-ball threat or trying to make Karl-Anthony Towns into a low post option and take away his 3. I want to see more break from Jalen Brunson. All these things that the fans have been looking for. I want to see someone who sees the same things we do and says, you know what, I'm going to pick and choose which ones can be maximized, which ones are realistic, and then implement that into a game plan so they become our strengths in playoff matches.
So who are some options that you feel like, best fit that mold?
Well, when you're talking about people who have been fired, there's the strengths and weaknesses are going to be pretty apparent. I interviewed Bernie Bickerstaff for a Knick of Time Substack and got a chance to talk about him. He was Mike Brown's first coach in Denver and Washington when Mike Brown was even younger than me. He was in his 20s as a video intern, coordinator, and then assistant coach once he got to Washington. And learned a lot about his background, learned about his ability to adapt, which I think if you see the type of offense he ran in Cleveland, LeBron James, it was a lot of 1-4 flat. It was a lot of spread offense, ISO. There's a lot of pick and roll. Then you got to Sacramento, completely different offset, a lot of off-ball movement, a lot of down screens, the dribble handoff that I mentioned earlier. It was very different. He adapted based to his personnel. That interests me. Mike Brown, I've always been underwhelmed by the results, most notably the playoff results when he didn't have LeBron. Were really disappointing. When he went back to Cleveland, when he was in LA, when he was in Sacramento, first-round exit. He's a boring pick to me, but I do think right assistant coach around him, he could maximize Karl-Anthony Towns and Jalen Brunson. I'm leaning on him first because everything I've heard behind the scenes and externally is that he's the favorite, the odds-on favorite, because of the relationship that he has with Worldwide Wes. And I've also, off the record, talked to people around both Micah Nori and Taylor Jenkins. Taylor Jenkins is born in the same city I was in Arlington, has a lot of contacts here in St. Mark's where he played basketball. I've talked to some of the coaching staff there off the record. But I think all of these guys are high character, high IQ individuals. And I don't think you can just judge them on their record so far in the NBA, with the exception of Mike Brown, because he's been in multiple stops. The other guys, the only time that Micah Nori's ever coached NBA games is in Minnesota when Chris Fritz was in.
When he hurt his leg, right?
Only time Taylor Jenkins has been a head coach was in Memphis So there's a very small sample size, and both those guys had most of the same roster for the most part in both their tenures, with the exception of Cat leaving. So I think there's a lot of unknown elements to this coaching search. To me, I'm looking at someone who's younger, someone who has less of a generational gap in communication and empathy, someone who can really reach these guys and motivate them and not lose the locker room or be too fundamental in their approach to instituting an offense, be a little bit more flexible. That's what I'm really looking for. And to me, my number one option right now is Mike Nori. I like the gamble on assistant. He seems to be absolutely brilliant. That was kind of wherever it came up when I was talking to people that knew him. Brilliant offensive mind. Someone who really knows how to get into the mind of a player and get them to be bought in, which is appealing to me. And if I had a second choice, I would say Taylor Jenkins.
Yeah. And, with Nori, like, if we are going to get an assistant, like, as long as we get assistants or if we interview assistants that have been in good ecosystems, right? But been around good, head coaches and, and understand what it takes, So, because there's been a lot of people who are kind of down on getting an assistant coach because we are essentially, we're close, right? And then with all the injuries we've seen, Halliburton's, probably going to miss the whole season, right? Tatum's gone. So, like, the East is essentially wide open. Like, so now it's like, do we get a head coach that has been around, or, do we get an assistant coach? And some people are afraid the assistant coach route, but if you get an assistant coach who's been around good coaching, good culture, good ecosystems, I think I'm cool with that. That's why the Nori thing is kind of, I'm like, okay, I wouldn't mind that. Like, and he's a brilliant guy, he knows offense and stuff. So that's a name that I actually wouldn't be opposed to,
If you think about the first coaching search that happened in 2020 with Leon Rose, Mike Woodson was one of the guys that was interviewed for that coach, and he ended up taking the assistant role. I think there's a similar philosophy here, where maybe not with all the guys they've interviewed. I don't think they would ever ask Jason Kidd, do you want to be the assistant to Mike Nori? But I do think in the Mike Brown situation, potentially even the Taylor Jenkins, certainly James Borrego, I think there's a conversation. If we don't choose you, would you be interested in backing up the guy that we do choose? Now, that's very interesting. Mike Nori becomes way more exciting as a prospect if Mike Brown, a guy who's coached in the finals, coached LeBron James, is his sideline, his lead assistant, the same way he was for Steve Kerr in Golden State, bringing those principles, that know-how, that playoff experience, knowing what adjustments Steve Kerr made in the finals run to win a championship and what he didn't. That is super exciting to me. I think that's a mistake that Leon Rose would not make again, is letting Tom Thibodeau bring all his bum-ass friends to the end of the bench. These guys who never really – I'm not saying they didn't do anything behind the scenes, because they certainly did. But I didn't see enough change from Tibbs year over year to trust those guys to not be anything more than yes men. I want some different voices with different backgrounds, backing up whoever we choose, to actually have this time a lead assistant instead of, is our best player's daddy going to be the new head coach if we fire Tibbs? That has to be never again, bro. That was embarrassing.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
Leon Rose did, because Rick Brunson's a bum, and he's the last guy I would want coaching this Knicks team. We need someone who can really take over and provide a set of principles, kind of like what Doug Christie did for Mike Brown, a set of principles that enhance a part of a game that was lacking previously, in that case, defense, right? Now, I would love to see that institute in this new Knicks head coach.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that was the thing with Tibbs too, is his assistants, like who he had around him. Like those, like I'm pretty certain a lot of those guys won't be on any benches next year, Yeah, so that was another thing. Like, and listen, player development is crucial, and I don't think we had that. And I think whoever the next coach is, they're going to bring in their guys who because we don't have a lot to play with in free agency, right? Essentially, vet men type of guys, right? So we can't really get a massive piece to help us. But the guys we drafted last year, the two guys we got this year, those are going to be integral parts in our for our bench. So if we can get the right guys, whoever the coach is around that guy, around the head coach, that's going to be crucial, because those guys are going to be very, very important on how far we can go. So that's important. I don't think Tibbs had those right guys around him, and that's kind of why we didn't make the finals. And I think that's why they made the move. Like, hey, it may take us a minute to find a coach, but we definitely need to pivot from this from Tibbs regardless. We have to make this pivot. So, I understand the move. Like I did like Tibbs. I'm more of like, because we were bad and he kind of make it relevant, and I appreciate that. But I understood the move. I 100% understood the move and why they did it. And yes, they may have not had the option. I think they did have the option, but they couldn't get that guy immediately. But I understand the pivot, and whoever that next coach is gonna have a more up to date offensive philosophy. So I was always cool with letting go of Tibbs.
And you know what we have, bro, that maybe only 5 other teams in the NBA have? We have a real superstar. We have a real first option. And that's why I was never adamant about firing Tibbs. I thought we could win a chip despite of Tibbs. I didn't like him, but I respected him. And I saw that Jalen Brunson played the best basketball of his career under him and grew into a superstar. So I was like, why change if it's working? But once we did, it's one of the reasons I'm confident in this coaching search. No matter who we pick, I think we're still a championship contender because we got Jalen effing Brunson on the roster. And as long as Jalen Brunson's on this roster, we don't have a shot to win a chip.
100%. And the starting five's cool. Like, regardless of who the coach is, like, they're going to do their thing. It's what the head coach is going to do with the guys on the bench. Who's going to be in that rotation? How is he going to expand the rotation? How are they going to develop? Because that's the difference. Starting five is cool, right? We're going to be all right, regardless. But it's who's going to be there to develop these guys to help us, because that's going to be the key. We saw the teams in the finals, they went 9-10 deep, and that's why they were in the finals. So I think that's going to be crucial.
My biggest caveat about who we hire, to me, is in-game adjustments. Tibbs was willing, he showed, to make the in-game adjustments necessary to win a game or to win a series. Sometimes it came a little bit too late, in my opinion.
Yes.
I think if you would have made those adjustments in game 1 or early in game 2, series that went 6 could have gone 5. Series that went 5 could have gone 4. And I think we would have had more time to rest, more time to prepare, and more time to plan for that next round if you would have done those moves sooner. That stubbornness, to me, is what needs to be eliminated from the Nets head coach. The willingness to make the right move when it's in real time is going to be crucial as winning a chip.
I'm with you 100%, man. A few more minutes before I let you go, man. Appreciate you coming on the pod, bro. It was always good, to talk to you, and now we're doing it live on the podcast. But what are you looking forward to for Summer League with the Knicks? Like, what do you want to see? I know it's Summer League, and then it's kind of like when in baseball, spring training, and we always tend to overhype good performances. But what do you want to see in Summer League? I know we don't have a coach, so we don't even know. But what are some things you're looking forward to see with some of the young guys from last year and stuff?
Yeah, there's like 3 things that came top of mind. I want to see Tyler Kolek on defense. I want to see if he's taken the criticism and really worked on his body and worked on his conditioning, worked on his lateral movement to stay in front of the guy that he's guarding, because we know that he can pass. We know he has a vision. We know his reads are exceptional. It's a great 3-point shot as well. I want to see the defense, because that's going to be the make or break component to him earning real minutes as a backup guard next season in the rotation, not in the bench. But if he wants to be a rotation player, he's got to become better on defense. That's number 1. Number 2 is Pakom Dadiat. I got to see more aggressiveness. Sometimes the motor I wasn't really impressed with in the minutes that he was in. Then other times I was seeing flashes where in rotation he was pretty good and staying in front of his defender off of a switch. I was impressed. The 3-point shot athleticism is there. I want to see him attack closeouts with more purpose. I want to see him look for his teammates as well, and not just always go for the ISO one-on-one opportunity. So that's number 2. Number 3, I want to see Ariel Hotporty outside drop coverage. When he came in, the expectation in his minutes was to play and drop. I want to see how he does guarding the perimeter. Can he be Mitch Light? Because Mitch has shown a lot of potential guarding the 3-point line, even blocking 3-point shots. We love to see how Ariel Hotporty manages that. Also, how he manages navigating bid-to-bid strings, too. Can he stay in front of his man? Can he be a real threat at the level to contain the point of attack? We'll see. We've seen him in drop. He was decent at it. He wasn't as good as Sims, in my opinion, as a rim protector. But I want to see how he can get a little bit further away from the basket, guarding 3s and 4s, an ISO attempt. So those are 3 things I'm going to be looking at, because they're all talented. They all have very high potential, in my opinion, including Kevin McCullough. But those 3 guys, to me, I think have the 3 best shots of cracking the rotation, with an emphasis on Hotporty and Pacome really being rotation pieces next season.
Well, especially Pacome, man. That was their first round pick. So they, and we need wing depth off the bench. So he's going to be He and like I said, Kolick too, what he can do, because he'll dictate whether they need to get a legit backup point guard, another ball handler. So, that's gonna be important. But I'm looking forward to it. But my guy Lee, appreciate you, man. This was a lot of fun. So before we sign off, brother, we're definitely gonna be doing this again. So I'm definitely gonna have you back on the pod for sure. But tell the people where they can find you, any projects you got going. I know you got a lot of things going on, man. You a busy man.
Yeah, I got some articles churning out for Bleacher Report, some more my social issues on race and stuff that are going to be starting up in July that I'm really excited about, kind of similar to what I do with The Guardian, where I look at social issues that intersect with basketball and I write about them from my perspective. I'll be doing that with Bleacher Report here starting later in the summer. And the Knick of Time show, we just launched our new show for Ebony, Liberty Latte. So she'll be her first episode came out yesterday, so she'll be pushing that one forward. And then KOT will be covering summer lead for agency and the head coaching search all summer long. You can find me on Twitter at _ Lee Escobedo, LeeEscobedo. I'll be dropping some new poetry soon as well. I had 13 poems published this year, so I'm gonna keep that momentum going as well.
There you go, my guy. There you go. Like I said, we've been chopping it up on X for a little bit, and now we finally get to talk face to face. So I appreciate you, man. You're one of the better hoop minds, and I always respect dope hoop minds. So like I said, I had to get you on the pod to talk about the Knicks draft. You said you knew a lot about Dink Pate, so that's why I wanted to get you on here. You got a lot of intel on Dink, so hopefully people watching can get the better understanding of Dink and what we could potentially be getting. Because we might have a diamond in the rough. So we'll see. And yep, I hope we do. And then the Knicks coaching search, we'll see. Who will be the next Knicks coach. But Lee, appreciate you. Make sure to follow me at Off the Ball Pod. Make sure to like, subscribe, comment on the YouTube channel. Make sure to follow on all social media platforms and all podcast platforms. But on that note, be well, be safe, take care. Peace and love, everyone.
Start spreading the news.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
New York, I love you. I love New York.